A thread by Comrade Fudge. And more keeps dropping. Donald Trump Jr. tweets Hunter Biden tried to cash in on behalf of family with Chinese firm. Emails 10 held by H for the big guy. H appears to be Hunter Biden. But who exactly is the big guy here? Joe Biden? If so, he's compromised by China. Comrade Fudge continues. See, it's funny. Trump supporters knew all about Hunter, and it was extremely relevant to the election, as Hunter's actions while Joe was VP was just a preview of what would occur if Joe was president. Meanwhile, the worst the Dems could come up with wasn't even against Ivanka and Jared, who were in the fucking White House, but instead a 15-minute meeting that was clearly a Fusion GPS and State Department setup, a meeting which was a waste of time per everyone's testimony. Twitter promoted the absolute fuck out of one and is now censoring the other. It's funny, really. Seriously, I'm laughing. It's a clown world all the way down for two reasons. First, the censoring of the story became the story, and it became a much larger story. This on the heels of Pelosi calling CNN Trump apologists, among a host of other cracks in the social media, mainstream media, Democratic Party monolith. Do you know what's happening? Do you? This is panic. The second reason I'm laughing, because it no longer fucking matters, and they know it. None of this matters. None of it. Tweets don't matter. Facebook status posts don't matter. Mainstream media airtime doesn't matter. Democratic politicians' statements don't matter. None of it matters. See, Orwell got one thing wrong, and we're only just now seeing what that is. 1984's dystopia relies on people being insane because they were forced to constantly gaslight themselves into insanity. That's the only way their society could function, that people could exist within it by convincing themselves to be insane. But what happens when the majority of people are sane and don't bother trying to gaslight themselves? The entire dystopian mindfuck system fails to work. Are there still insane people trying to make themselves crazier on Twitter and Facebook? Yeah, of course. And by social media promoting this raw, shit eating insanity, most people go, huh, that's a thing, and then ignore them, and then ignore social media altogether. Remember, Facebook and Twitter are fucking bleeding active users every month. People are signing off or keeping their activities on the platform incredibly niche. They stopped mattering. The real reason Trump is here on Twitter, the reason I'm here, social media is libtard ground zero. And being here pisses them off immensely. Us being here pisses them off immensely. Us being here makes them fucking insane. Trending random cat turd farting hashtags makes them crazy people. Even fucking crazier. Because they convinced themselves it matters. The mainstream media, they're bleeding viewers every night. The only ones left are the ones swallowing up the gaslighting insanity who are dependent on it. And so the mainstream media is driving content towards the batshit insane demographic to the exclusion of everyone else. Sane people tuned out. Social media is for the insane. Mainstream media is for the insane. And the Democrat politicians, they aren't stupid. They're insane, but they aren't stupid. They know exactly how badly they're going to lose, and they're pissed about it. They just realized none of this is working. They just realized that spending the last 6 years trying to use social media and the mainstream media to drive everyone insane enough to vote Democrat did not work. That no matter how many accounts they get blocked, how many users they blackmail for spicy memes, how much algorithm fucking, it doesn't fucking matter. So, a story because stories seem to get points across. I play Warhammer 40K, plastic miniature war game. I'm good at it. Well, not the game itself. I'm good at fucking with people. The bigger the game, the more people involved, the better I am at fucking with people. Models are each worth a certain number of points. Armies are capped at a certain number of points. 2,000 is the norm. One day, me and some friends decide to play a massive 10,000 point games because fuck it, why not? So we have 4 players each side, a total of 6 objectives, 3 on each side of the table. As we're planning, I tell one of my friends to just use 2,000 points instead of the 2,500, but to put in as many models as possible to make him appear bigger, then set up on one objective. I lied to get him to agree. I told him he was setting up to hold that objective and that he'd get reinforcements in the battle itself. I'm not a good person, FYI. I was just gonna fucking win. He agreed and set up a Maginot Line from hell to defend one objective. I took the extra 500 points and I held all of my army, close to a third of our total forces, in reserve. The game proceeded. Because there were 4 players and each side had 3 objectives on each side, logic dictated 3 players would defend and 1 would attack. After all, whoever held the most objectives would win, and 4 was the majority of objectives. Except the other 2 players on my team who were on the board then charged across the table. My friend, who was holding the objective with the Maginot Line from hell, he saw the army across from him charge at him, and the enemy reinforcements all land on top of him as well. His army was butchered to the last model, and he was screaming for reinforcements the whole way. See, I figured there was one other way to win. If the other side doesn't hold any objectives, then holding even one objective would be enough to win, since it was who held the most objectives, not the majority of objectives. Our opponents realized this too. When the other 2 armies on our side charged, they immediately threw everything into pushing our one defending player off his objective, since that's clearly the one point we were defending. And as the last models from the Maginot Line from hell were surrounded, I finally brought my army into play. The extra 500 points I kept for myself? Artillery barrages, targeted on the swarms of enemies that were overwhelming our flank, killing the last of my friend's models. The rest dropped from our reserves directly into the enemy line on 2 of their objectives, the enemies on them having been bled out and denied reinforcements, since a full half of their army had gone towards attacking an objective, only to be wiped out by artillery strikes. End of the day, we held 4 objectives to their 1. They were too busy defending on 2 fronts to grab our 2 objectives, and so a few of our last models were sent back at the last minute to grab them. We pushed them off 2 of theirs, 3 out of 4 of our force, overwhelming half of theirs. Yeah, we only needed 1 more than them, but we had to make sure we won. We made it seem like we were pursuing one plan, only to change plans mid-fight after they were all already committed. That is how you win. Why are Trump and company still fighting the mainstream media and social media? Because we have to make the Dems think it matters. We have to convince them to throw all of their resources into thinking that the mainstream media and social media matter. They just spent 6 years committing everything to social media and the mainstream media, thinking the plan was to wage a war of social engineering to fight them on their turf, only for the game plan to be winning through the Electoral College again, because that's what counts.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.